we are going to hold a question session. If that's good for you, we're going to do 45 minutes of questions. Is that good? So I don't know if you have questions. Usually you have when the teacher is not there, isn't it? Then all of these things, I have to ask this and that, and then it goes away. So do you have any questions today? Nobody, any questions? Why don't you sit a bit closer? Especially now you're all alone, so that seems like very empty here. If you want, you can sit at the table. No? You answer questions together with me. Why not? Okay, to start with, I would like to thank you for being here. As you see, without you, I would be sitting alone here with the camera. I would still teach, but that would be slightly different. So, what are the questions you have, really?
So, as part of the rule, we started touching upon travellers.
Yes.
So, when it comes to Salah and travelling,
yes,
what's the Hanafi sort of fixed stance on joining, not joining?
Okay.
As a reduction of prayer?
So the Hanafi fiqh, in the Hanafi fiqh, we join between prayers, but not in one prayer time. Meaning, when we speak about joining between prayers, which would be Dhuhr and Asr and Maghrib and Isha, they would say that there is something which is called al-jam'u suri, yani, meaning outwardly looking like a jama', like joining between prayers, but in reality it isn't. Meaning that they would pray Dhuhr at the end of Dhuhr time, then when they give salam it would be time for Asr, and then they would pray Asr, and that would be exactly the same with Maghrib and Isha. But what they would not allow is for you to bring Dhuhr into the Asr time, your first takbir of Dhuhr into the Asr time, or your first takbir of Asr into the Dhuhr time. The reason why is because the Prophet ﷺ, according to Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, said, I saw the Prophet ﷺ and he never joined between prayers. You see? So we have these different narrations, and according to the Ahnaf, the other narrations about joining, they are all about Jama' Suri, outwardly looking like joining between prayers, but in reality all in their own time, especially because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, Inna salata kanat al mu'minina kitaban mawquta, that prayer is on a specific, has been prescribed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be performed in a specific time. So they say the Quran is very clear about this. So even when we gather, we don't, get into another time.
So is it within other schools of thought where they are allowed?
Yes. So, but even the Hanafis would give exceptions.
Right.
Like for example, if you're a surgeon, you have open heart surgery during the day in winter. You start at 7 in the morning. Well, you prayed your Fajr, and now Asr will already be at 3:30. So are we going to tell him don't join between prayers? Are we going to tell him leave the patient and So here we're going to say you are allowed to join between prayers, which might be the same, for example, for a pilot if he were not to be allowed to pray on the plane. That we say, okay, do this, you can join between prayers. So we would say, no, the default is that it is not allowed, but there are always exceptions. Now what the problem is, the people today, the majority of Muslims, they always want a way out. They don't want to stick to the default. So they always ask for exceptions and not for the rule. So this is why in general we usually don't ever give these fatwa or verdicts where we say just go ahead, no problem. So, but within the Hanafi fiqh, there would be exceptions, but that would be in extreme situations. Yeah.
So my question is around death and preparing for death.
Yes.
And I guess it kind of links to the fact that our parents are getting older, and obviously we don't know who's going to go first, etc. But what can we start doing to kind of help them in the kind of practical way?
Okay.
In that sense.
Okay. Do you mean to prepare for death, or to what exactly is it? What do you mean?
So in terms of like what should be done in terms of tying loose ends in the world to kind of
Okay.
know that you're, yeah.
So the best thing one can do for the parents is to remind them whether they have to rectify certain things they have done in their lives, or, for example, that they didn't return something, money or possession, wealth, whatever it may be, to a person, or whether they have gossiped about a certain person or lied about a certain person, so that they rectify all of these things. Secondly, they say youth should be inspired with fear, while elders should be inspired with hope. So also at the same time, emotionally, spiritually preparing them by drawing a smile on their hearts and making them ready, to look into the eyes of the future, the eternal future, instead of like going, oh, you're gonna die, you don't know what's gonna happen to you. You want them to die with a smile on their face and to look forward to meeting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these are the most important things. Also like catching up prayers, making up prayers, doing qada, and also reminding them to leave a sadaqah jariyah behind them, an ongoing charity, being it whatever, Quran that they buy, or more masahif, giving them to a madrasa, a normal madrasa where no evil things happen. I don't know if you saw the news. No, you didn't. No. Oh. Yeah. If you don't know, I don't want to be the messenger of bad stories. But it was on news yesterday, BBC, that imams in madrasa had in the UK.
I don't watch the news.
Oh, okay.
Me neither. I got it by message from the board of the mosque, not this mosque.
Yeah, but I think it's a story that comes around quite often.
Yeah, abuse. But it happens, The problem is, if we work in a mosque and we know that there is abuse by someone, then that person should be reported. It's not like we're going to cover it up, right? Covering up is not Islamic. Anyway, let's continue. So a sadaqah jariyah, like investing money in a mosque, for example, or buying masahif, giving them to a madrasa, these kind of things. So that would be, Allahu Alam, for me the best way to forgive. On Day of Judgment, you don't want your enemy in front of you. You just want to get rid of him. So why don't you just say, let's forget and forgive? So these are the 5. I think I mentioned 5 points, right? 5 points which I would advise for people to do.
And that concept of like forgiveness, is that having a conversation with the people?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Or maybe someone has already passed away and they still hold grudges against that person. So you try to tell them, don't take this with you in your heart. Because the moment of death, you want one thing in your heart, and that's La ilaha illallah. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, من كان آخر كلامه لا إله إلا الله مخلصا من قلبه دخل الجنة. He or she whose last words are La ilaha illallah, yani will enter paradise, with the condition that it's sincerely from their hearts. He said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. No.
Any advice on the people left behind, what they could do?
The best thing people can do, those who are left behind, the first thing you need to tell you, you're all on the same journey, but he's just a bit ahead of you. It sounds cliche, but it's true. I mean, sometimes people travel for 2 weeks, sometimes for 3 weeks, sometimes for 6 months. And you don't know for how long he will be there without you. So saying like, oh, now 20 years without him, how do you know whether you're going to live 20 years? And on the other hand, when you die, you meet. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَاتَّبَعَتْهُمْ ذُرِّيَّتُهُمْ بِإِيمَانٍ أَلْحَقْنَا بِهِمْ ذُرِّيَّتَهُمْ وَمَا أَلَتْنَاهُ مِنْ عَمَلِهِمْ مِنْ شَيْءٍ كُلُّ امْرِئٍ بِمَا كَسَبَ رَهِينٌ. And in Surah At-Tur, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and those who believed and are followed by their family and offspring and believe, they will be gathered in paradise. And you know what a beautiful thing is? Allah says here, وَمَا أَلَتْنَاهُ مِنْ عَمَلِهِمْ مِنْ شَيْءٍ. They meet in paradise, but it won't reduce anybody's reward. Why? Because when you're all together, maybe you are in level 59 and I'm in level 1. So when we're together, well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can create different colors and perceptions for each one of them. You see? So they will rejoice in that whatever was destined for them to rejoice in, and the other ones as well, without having to miss out on one another. You see? No.
When I went to Hajj recently, there was, in Medina, you have the Sunnat al-Baqi. They have big signs saying, don't read any Quran for the deceased.
Yes. That's because they believe that this leads to shirk.
Uh-huh.
That this leads to, associating partners to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But that's typical of Saudi thing.
Yeah, it's not the orthodox opinion.
No, it's not. No, it isn't. SubhanAllah, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and once he heard about a lady that had died, and she used to clean the mosque. So she had died, they performed the prayer for her, and then they buried her. So now the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he came, he said, "Where is she?" He said, "She died." He said, "And we have buried her." And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Show me her grave." And then he went, he made a dua for her. You see? So to cut a long story short, making a dua at a grave is not shirk. The ziyarah of the amwat can be divided into three categories. The category of the sunnah, which is when you go and you make dua for the deceased. You say, "Oh Allah, bless him or her, assist her, him," and so much more. The second one is a bid'ah one. It is where you think that the dead can ask Allah on your behalf. So you are not yet saying the dead has any power over me. You're just saying the dead person, and he has a connection with Allah, and he will ask Allah. So you're not saying, "Oh dead, provide for me. Oh dead one, do this and that." So you still have this. And from a fiqh point of view, it's like you were to ask a living person. You ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make dua for me. Now the only difference is he's dead. If you understand what I mean. So this is why we say it's bid'ah, it's not kufr. According to some, would even be allowed with the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So anyway, to cut a long story short again, then we have the third one, which would be shirk. And the shirk would be that you ask the dead, and you say, "Provide for me, ya Sidi Hassan." These kind of things. Because this is shirk. Even if you were to believe that a living person can do things for you which only Allah can, that would be shirk as well. Is that clear, the difference?
Yeah, they specify no Quran reading.
Yeah, they specify so many things. I had a brother, he was just making dua when he was in front of the grave of the Prophet ﷺ. He said, "No shirk, no shirk." They're a bit obsessed. Shirk is a dangerous thing. Shirk is dangerous, and we need to warn against shirk. But our fear for shirk is not that is exaggerated that we are going to say that certain things are shirk while they aren't. So that's what I mean. But shirk is the most dangerous thing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, in Surah Luqman, "Inna shirka la dhulmun azim." Shirk is the biggest form of oppression and wrongdoing. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَقَدْ أُوحِيَ إِلَيْكَ وَإِلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكَ لَإِنْ أَشْرَكْتَ. We have revealed to you and those who were before you that if you were to commit shirk, that we would annul all of your good deeds. So yes. No. So read Quran for the dead, no problem. Imam al-Mawardi wrote a book about this. Al-Hanbali, one of the biggest Hanbali scholars. And he said about the Quran reaching the dead, no one has differed. So we don't have a problem with that at all. No. Why? Somebody else? If you now say no, then we have a problem. We still have an hour, 24 minutes to go.
So I have a question around the mortgages.
Okay, there we go.
So that will take up half an hour.
No, you won't. I think 5 minutes. Unless you want haram, halal.
Just understanding what, in the context we live in today. Now, if you were tied into a mortgage or had a mortgage to provide for your family so they have a stable roof over their head.
Yep.
What's the ruling in that scenario versus anything else?
I can't tell people for them on their behalf do it or don't do it. That's the first point. The second point is before people used to think that the only one saying that you could in certain circumstances, and he was Dr. Yusuf al-Qardawi, for example. He would be the flag holder, or how do you say that, who would say you can do it. Those people who say that you can do it never say that riba is halal. Okay, nobody says riba is halal, riba is haram. That's obvious. But exactly like dead meat is haram, sometimes it becomes a necessity and might even become wajib. Is that clear? And it's the same with many things. Unless there is harm that you will be afflicting upon others, you never have that permission. Like in a war, somebody tells you, kill that person or I kill you. You say, I'm not going to kill that person. You're not allowed to kill to save your own life. An innocent person. Okay. So now to come back. Now in the 1980s, you should know that the economists are economists, right? They are very intelligent people. They know. They don't predict the future, but they calculate the future. I mean the collapse of the banking world in 2008, right, was predicted by so many different people. They said this is going to happen, and there is a second one on its way, and a third one, and so much more. So in the 1980s, people already said that after the year 2000, and before 2000, rent will go up and mortgages will go down. Meaning that at a certain point, you will be able to get a loan from the bank, which is cheaper for you than renting an apartment. If you look in London, it depends where you are. Take Richmond, Kingston, whatever. Maybe some people pay 1,200, 1,300, 400, 600, 2,000, 2,200. The prices are going up, right? It depends where you live. So now these economists said there will come a time where it will be better for people to buy a house, because if they don't, they will end up in financial problems. And man and woman alike will have to go out working. People will be left, children will be left in the creche. No? So even social life will suffer. Both partners will be more outside of the house than inside of the house. They will come home, they are, how do you say, very tired? Is there a word for that? Knackered. Is that a good word, knackered?
Yeah.
I wanted to use it, but I didn't know it was not good. Huh?
Very colloquial.
Okay, I like that. I like colloquial. So you come home and you're really exhausted and knackered. And so now when you come home, you don't have time for one another. Then maybe you're going to have to do an extra job. So as you see, it has economical and social and emotional consequences. So now these scholars said, look, but I don't have a house with mortgage, so I'm not saying this on my own behalf, if you understand what I mean. I'm just trying to give two parts of the story. So now they said, if you do this, they said, that it is a necessity. Some of the economists said it's a necessity. It's no longer an option or a choice. You have to do it, or you will end up with a lot of people in the same house, which also has its consequences, or with doing a lot of jobs and eventually divorcing, breaking up, whatever, children suffering, and so forth. So now they said there is a necessity. Now the faqih, the faqih is not the one that says it's not necessary from an economical point of view. When the economists come to a faqih and they say there is a catastrophe about to happen, people need to do it, or otherwise they will suffer. This is information which the faqih can't deny. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So I'm not saying he should now say it's halal, but the fact and the matter is, economists say it's a necessity, otherwise it will lead to the catastrophe. So now the faqih, he needs to admit that the necessity is there. Now it is for him to find a solution. A solution meaning halal, haram, which ways, which other parts and methodologies do exist or don't. You see? So it is not for him to say, no, that's not true. Like for example, if you have the dietists or whatever, the nutritionists, no? They say, for example, this food or this kind of E number is very bad, it can give you cancer and so much more. Then actually a faqih should look at it. And if you know that because of drinking Coca-Cola you can get cancer, then actually a faqih should give a verdict. You see? So now you see that a faqih should always be in connection with specialists. If he's not in connection with specialists and with the text and not with the context, he will give wrong verdicts. This is why they say ينبغي للفقيه أن يكون ابن وقته. A faqih should be a child of the time he lives in, because otherwise he will be alienated from that which the society is all about. So now, very, very briefly, some of these scholars, and then it became groups of scholars, they said, look, it is a necessity. And the reason why riba was made haram is to protect the wealth of those in need. Do we agree? It is to protect their wealth. So the reason why riba was made haram is now present in not having a mortgage. Do you understand what I mean? So they say, I'm saying their side, then I'm going to give a reply. But what we need to know, because people immediately say they are shayateen, they try to ruin the shara, hold your horses. Do you know that the majority of Muslims, they have houses with a loan? Like everybody does like they're holy. No, astaghfirullah, no, this haram. They say this 20 years after they bought their house, It's very easy now. So all of a sudden now we're pious. It's like when you're in jail, you can't kill anymore. Well, I'm not a killer any longer now. I mean, you can't kill. So if we come back to the point, then the thing is, like people go to an Islamic bank. When they go to an Islamic bank, the loan is much, and it's not a loan. They're buying the house from the bank because the bank is the owner. That is how it is supposed to be. The bank owns it. And the bank knows that you want to buy a house. You can't afford it. The bank says, well, I'm going to make profit. I'm going to buy it and then sell it to you. That's okay. That's no problem. The problem now is they want to make the methodology Islamic, but the results go against the reason why riba was made haram. So a loan at a normal bank is much cheaper than buying that same house from what? From an Islamic bank. People call me. They say, can we stop? Because they ask us so much. We end up paying like 16,000 more, some 25,000. I mean, so you're saying it's Islamic just because of the methodology. But the reason why riba was made haram was to protect money. And now protecting the money is more present in the non-Islamic law way than in the Islamic one. Because people are misusing and abusing the need. Because the need and the necessity might be there to have that house. You see? So this is the way that the scholars who say that it's allowed to do this, speak. So it's much longer, right? They hundreds and hundreds of pages. And so now they say, look, in an Islamic country it is not allowed. In a non-Muslim country it is allowed because the rulings in a non-Muslim country are different, fiqh-wise. And this has already been discussed more than 1,000 years ago, where they would say that the fiqh of transaction in a non-Muslim country is different than the fiqh of transaction in a Muslim country. They also say if now people don't have their own houses, rent will go up. It will continue going up. Eventually, you will only be working to pay your rent, nothing will be left, and you will end up in a needy position where you will maybe have to beg, where maybe you need to humiliate yourself, where maybe as a mother alone with children, you might end up doing things which you are not supposed to do, whatever it may be, or as a man or a husband, or so many things can go wrong. So they said, because of all of this, temporarily it is allowed to do this. Riba is not halal. The mortgage is temporarily allowed for you to make use of until there is an Islamic system in place. And an Islamic system, not only the way, the methodology, but also the result, which is preserving the wealth of people. So they say when you keep on spending and renting, at the end you end up like a slave. People say, yes, but taqwa Allah, you should have taqwa and this and that. Yes, but taqwa is also preserving the community, it's preserving your children, it's preserving. Then they say, yeah, but not through haram. Well, Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, when it was the year of drought, when it was the year of drought, then he didn't punish the people physically who would steal. Why? He didn't say this law doesn't exist anymore. He said temporarily the context wherein it is supposed to be to take place is not present. So we put it in a mortuarium. How do you say this? We freeze it temporarily. Yes, yes, exactly. So for a certain moment in time, until the context is different. So it's not about shayateen trying to change the shara and trying to deviate people. No? And then you have the other part, which just says clearly, no. They say because the ayat and the hadith are clear cut, so it's not allowed. So that's it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. But I think it's wrong also towards the Muslim community that people always say they are shayateen, they are following their passions, it's haram, you end up in hell. But they never give the thoughts behind their verdict, which we now did. So now you understand where they're coming from. Even if you don't agree, for example, you know why they say what they say. It took me more than 300 pages to get there. Even Dr. Yusuf al-Qardawi, he said, I used to say that it's haram or not permissible, and I was one of the people who were the most against this verdict until I saw the proofs, and I knew that a faqih has to save the community, not to drown it. No. Anyway, that's it. Another one? Bismillah, it's nice.
I think you mentioned last week something about men's trousers.
Yes.
Do you want to tell us what your thoughts were?
Yes, my friend. The trousers, they shouldn't be so tight to the legs that they actually show the shape of it.
Form-fitting.
Yeah, form-fitting. I'm not saying form-fitting in your normal life, do what you want. I'm just talking about fit in your prayer. So make a bit loose, how do you call it? Loose trousers, for example. Or you take your hoodie, you do it around your waist, but then also the back and the front. So that when you sit down, you have this space which is covered. So, and then also when you perform sujood or ruku'ah, that nothing shows either. So, and this is one of the prerequisites of prayer, and people just don't seem to really care about it. But men need to cover, as well during prayer.
Then is it more important about long shirts than really?
Yes, more important about long shirts than that. For example, your thighs are covered. If it's until your knees when you sit down, then that's okay. And now it's a fashion. Go to Zara, buy one of these. I'm not sponsored. Maybe I should. The Muslim Imam sponsored by Zara and Nike. Last time they said, Astaghfirullah, Imam, you're wearing Nike, and Nike is a false god. I said, oh. So anyway, so now in Zara, for example, you know the kind of clothes I mean, right? So the urban,
Like Sufi-inspired clothing.
Sufi-inspired clothing, yes. Yes. Now you can go, they're still in sales. I saw one. Came from 69 to 15 pounds. Now is the time to buy Islamic clothes. Allah yubarik fik. Yalla, bismillah.
So I have a question, or so we just go to the technical now.
Yes.
So do you know, with the Sufi tariqas that are sort of
Yes.
like Naqshbandi tariqa,
Yes.
Qadiani, and all this, now what does, where does that sit in today's context? Like I kind of struggle with it.
Okay.
Because,
Understood.
I see there's a lot of positivity that comes from it, but I just don't know how it fits in with all the criticism as well.
Yes.
Like, I think it's,
I'm going to be grilled alive. So there are two very important and delicate, sensitive questions. So when you said Turuq, the Qadiani is not a Sufi tariqa.
Yeah, so
Yeah. Naqshbandi, you mean?
there's Naqshbandi and
The Qadiriya.
Qadiani is the Ahmadi.
Yes,
So
so forth.
yeah, not,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay. So now the thing is, to start with, barakallahu fikum, one is not in need of a murabbi to get to Allah. Allah, not in need, meaning it's possible to get to Allah without an educator. But the majority of our scholars, and in the past, had people who were their murabbin. Murabbin meaning the doctors of the soul. They wouldn't attribute divine powers to them. They wouldn't say they know the unseen. They wouldn't say haram is halal for him. They wouldn't do these strange things, and this is why tasawwuf can be divided into two categories: authentic tasawwuf and unauthentic tasawwuf. It all starts with understanding what the word tasawwuf is. Imam al-Munawi, rahimahullah azza wa jalla, he mentioned in his book Fayd al-Qadir, لبست الصوف مرقوعا وقلت أنا الصوفي ليس كما زعمت إنما الصوفي من تصفى من الأيام ويحك لو عقلت. You said I'm the Sufi and you started wearing like worn out clothes. He said that's not the Sufi. The Sufi is the one who purifies him or herself every day and every night. You see? So tasawwuf existed, the word tasawwuf, already in the year 155. And the first house in tasawwuf was built around that time. Some say it was by a man who was a companion of Al-Hasan al-Basri. Some would say, anyway, so there was a man, Abdul Wahid, who built a house in Kufa, in Basra, and it was a house of tasawwuf. Tasawwuf was referring to purifying yourself, and it was a science exactly like tafsir was a science. Usul al-fiqh didn't exist in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, did it? But it's a science. Qawa'id al-tafsir didn't exist in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, but nevertheless it's a science. Tasawwuf was a science, but a practical science, meaning because it is about practice, it is about inward change. So people now had these scholars, Almighty, mashallah, yes. People now had these scholars who would be certified in a certain way, but in a traditional way, to educate people and to let them go through a transformation. Is that clear? So people would do this, that would be very normal. So now in the time of Abdul Qadir al-Jailani, who was one of the great scholars, by the way, he was a big Shafi'i, Hanbali faqih. He was the sheikh of the two Maqdisis, Abdul Ghani al-Maqdisi and so forth. So anyway, he now said, well, so many people come to me and they say, what should I do to weep out of fear for Allah? What should I do to love the Quran? What should I do? He said, and then people would go and they would just come back and nothing would change. So now he let them promise hand in hand, like, give me your promise that you are going to do what I tell you. Not meaning going to tell you whatever I say, but which has to do with my education. Like, you need to hold on to certain conditions when you go to university, when you go to anywhere. Everything has conditions. So now, like, you can't go to Taijitsu school and then all of a sudden you start doing your own thing. He said, I'm sorry, I'm your teacher, I'm your sensei. So anyway, then after that, it came to existence that he would then give people the permission to themselves educate people. And then these are chains of narration in education, which can be authentic and which can be forged, which can be false, which can be beneficial and not beneficial. Is that clear? So now, the problem is that very often people who educate people, they don't want to form a sectarian group themselves, but the students turn it into that. You understand what I mean? And this is very often where a lot of people struggle with. They say, like, it's all about this, it's all about that, the way they dress alike, the way they speak alike, the same subhas, the same, everything is the same, they all buy in the same shops and this and that. But I think in a certain way that's the way life goes. Like, if you are all Liverpool, not to compare them, supporters, you're going to that Liverpool butcher, you're going to that Liverpool, I don't know, cafe. It's the concept of belonging. But I think the concept of belonging is good up to a certain degree. When it, and like almost everybody has it, like the Salafis have it, like Tablighis have it, all of a sudden, everybody seems just to be visiting those who agree with them, are the same as them, and when they look at others, they feel or they have the urge to ask them to be a part of them, of their group. If you understand what I mean. So it's like they're outsiders and I need to convert them to my thoughts.
So it's like they see their perspective as the right perspective.
Exactly.
The other perspective.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I think that tasawwuf, in the true sense of the word, is a very individual thing, more than a collective one. And everybody has his own path to Allah. But definitely teachers are needed, guides are needed. So that's how I look at it. And a lot of turuq Sufiya, or a lot of people who say that they adhere to the way of the Sufiya, are the furthest away from the Sufiya. So, Sufiya is not a bad word, but it has a negative connotation today because of certain things people do.
That's in today's context, that's probably one of the downfalls, because what we are in need of as Muslims more than anything is spirituality.
Exactly, yes.
Yet spirituality is undermined.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's sort of seen as, oh no, that's all of that is wrong.
No. But in reality, everything we need to get to Allah is in the 5 pillars of Islam.
But the way I see that sort of concept of Sufi, the way Sufism is sort of seen from the outset, to me, the concept comes from a simple concept of student and teacher,
Yes.
and that's all it's about.
Yes.
And it's about someone who trod that path a lot further than you, that can teach you
Yes.
to get to that, as
No.
opposed to being sat on your own trying to
Exactly.
figure it out,
Yes.
in essence.
Somebody?
I'm just trying to think about how to word it.
Just in the most easygoing way. Yeah.
That kind of thing. So we have that constant up and down in our Imam,
Yes.
and say we're at a trough, so we're trying to go back up, and there's certain so I'll give an example, for instance.
Yes.
It used to be easy to get up for tahajjud, now
Yes.
it's not. From what I understand, the reasons why certain people have chosen to wake up and actually have the opportunity to pray and
Yes.
have that connection with God. So, what is it that's what were the barriers?
Okay.
A reminder of that.
The first thing I would like to rectify is that very often we as Muslims we connect our weakness of faith, which we consider to be a weakness, to sins or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not loving us. While we should look at our 3 dimensions: mental health, physical health, and spiritual health. And sometimes spiritually somebody can be very strong, but maybe due to stress, a burnout, problems, mental problems, a bad situation at home, whatever it may be, which exhausts a human being. And I think the overload of information that a lot of people have today through social media is actually wearing us out. Like, there is no energy, there is no nothing. And the proof that someone is spiritually strong is that this person is yearning, for example, to pray Fajr on time, and it's always there. It never leaves the mind, like, why didn't I pray Fajr? I should pray Fajr. Ya Rabbi, inshallah, tomorrow I pray Fajr. We are not allowed just to say this is because of your sins. Maybe a person has a very tiring job. There are so many different things that we can't just say the problem is spiritual. Do you understand? Because if we look, even the Prophet ﷺ once overslept for Salat al-Fajr. And once he prayed Salat al-Asr too late. So how are we going to understand this? It's definitely not spiritual. But it's to show people that sometimes this happens. And this is when you see that the Prophet ﷺ said, if someone doesn't wake up for Fajr, not that he goes to bed, put these plugs in his ears and doesn't put an alarm clock and then 3 cushions not to hear the alarm. If you do this on purpose, you're a sinner, and that really means that you don't have a heart, right? A spiritual heart. But if someone sleeps and doesn't get up, then the Prophet ﷺ said, then this is a sadaqah which Allah has given him. Can you imagine? He didn't see it, then you're a sinner, then you're bad, then you're this, then you're that. So now to come back, yes, sins have an effect on our worship, our environment as well, the people we live with. It's much easier to get up when your partner gets up, when your parents get up, when your children get up, than when you're fighting alone. So maybe the methodology which someone is holding on to is not the correct one for him or her. Maybe someone goes to bed too late. When you go to bed at 12, well, it's very difficult to get up for Fajr. When you go to bed at 10, well, that's easier. So all of these questions, I think, it all needs to be looked at before saying it's a spiritual problem or a religious one. Do you understand what I mean? So maybe you want to elaborate on this, or you can ask a next question connected to what I've just said.
No, that helps.
Yes. So we should stop blaming sometimes ourselves, and very often preachers do this. Where were you with Fajr? Subhanallah, where I was. Subhanallah, in the hands of Allah.
Just going with that question,
Yeah.
because you were talking about how physical extortion,
Yes.
mental health,
Yes.
all that sort of stuff plays a part in what you are able and not able to do.
Yes, definitely.
Now, the time we live in today, where it is basically like a rat race,
Yes.
and trying to balance those aspects which are part and parcel of being human in terms of providing a roof,
Yes.
providing
Yes.
all that sort of stuff,
No.
and then trying to also balance relationships,
Yes.
which is a form of ibadah. So
Yes.
with the intention that balancing these relationships and giving
Yes.
due time to people
Yes.
that I'm into, etc.
Yes.
is a form of ibadah. And by the time you get into bed, it's 12 o'clock.
Yes.
So you haven't spent 6 hours watching Netflix.
Yes.
You spent 6 hours saying, do you know what, I've got 2 hours and I need to give this person time.
Yes.
I need to give my physical health some time, etc.
No, exactly.
Now how do, balancing that with then doing the above and beyond actions, how
Yes.
does that play out? So for instance, you say you don't get for tahajjud and you want to get for tahajjud, but in order to do that, there's probably about 3 other things that you're doing, which is also a form of ibadah.
Mm.
You need to
You should always prioritize your ibadah in such a way that if you have to make a choice between an ibadah which is not connected to serving people, now, doesn't interfere with the ibadah which is connected to serving people. That's it. So some people get stressed. You know, they say, I want to do tahajjud, what's happening? Like sometimes it happens, you wake up, you say, I'm going to have the best night prayer of my life. And all of a sudden your child wakes up. Where? So now you're stressed, you say, well, no, I just want to pray. Sometimes people might even get angry, say, Ya Rabbi, I just wanted to be alone with you. SubhanAllah. The moment you understand that worshipping Him is usually through ways that He chooses for you rather than ways that you choose for, then everything becomes ibadah. Going to the shop with your wife or your husband is ibadah. You know, just falling asleep while you are singing for your child is ibadah. Changing the diapers of your child is ibadah. Everything is ibadah. It's just how you look at it. And I think that the biggest form of ibadah between husband and wife is gratitude and appreciation. Done. These two, they are, how do you call that? Oil for the motor, for the engine? That doesn't sound nice in English. It's a Dutch saying. So gratitude and appreciation. That this is what at the end of, after a couple of months or a year, then everything the partner does for the other one seems to be normal because it's a kind of routine. We don't see anymore how that someone is investing time and energy to do something for us. And this is not of the sunnah of the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam. You thank your partner for everything he or she does. Everything. Like when someone folds the clothes, for example, puts it in the cupboard, well, they don't have to. It's your clothes. So if your husband does it or your wife does it, done. Aisha radiallahu anha said that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would always serve his family at home. Not meaning that Aisha wouldn't do anything at home, radiallahu anha. But I think appreciation, a good meal, just, it's good, yeah, but there's a bit of salt missing. I mean, you wouldn't talk like that to a brother. You wouldn't talk like that to your mother. Maybe you would, maybe not. But to people, in presence of people, you wouldn't say this. You say, no, mashallah, it's good. And if then they would say, would you like a bit more salt? You would say, yes, thank you, that's okay. So this is the same way that we should go about with the people we live with. When you wake up, you don't want to wake them up. You want them to sleep. So it's not like, oh, I'm awake, here I am. So appreciation and gratitude and respect. If these three are gone, there is no love. There's just routine, we're together because we are together. And that, I think, is the biggest form of ibadah. You know, these three things. SubhanAllah. Allah. That's in all relationships. All relationships. And I believe that one has normal time and quality time. Like, not every day can be quality time, but the quality you give every day is respect, and you don't stress out on people. Even if you had a bad day, you are out of energy, you have a burnout, the people you live with shouldn't suffer because of that. And then you have the me time, the quality time, yani with your family, with your wife or your husband or whatever. And this can't be every day as much, but one half a day where you even put this away. You and I, yalla, bismillah. Tell me everything you want to say. And then you listen. And you have quality time, you go and have something to eat together. All of that is ibadah. Is that clear? Yeah. Islam is so easy. Yeah, we're complicating things which Allah made easy. Last question. We have 2 more minutes. Okay, then we don't have 2 minutes. So, inshallah, next time we will continue with reading in the book from Fiqh, inshallah. But I thought it was nice to have some open Q&A, inshallah. Allah yabarik fikum. Jazakallah khairan. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa akhiru da'wan alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.